When you need someone to talk to and you don't know what to do, call us 421-4400. When you're feeling all alone and they turn their back on you, call us 421-4400. Call us 421-4400. Call us 421-4400. Call us. Welcome to the Kind Counseling Podcast with your hosts, Cammie and Danya Roberts. For those of you that don't know, Kind Counseling is a mental health practice located in the heart of Brooklyn, New York. Our mission is to give hope to the hopeless through mental health empowerment and spiritual insight. Today's guest is Mr. Andrew Ross. Andrew is an accomplished human service professional with over 20 years of experience in social services. He has worked in both direct service and administrative capacities throughout his career in areas focused on HIV, AIDS, mental health, and trauma. He is also involved in work with young fathers and in workforce development. Andrew is an author who shares his life story in his book, 9 Lives, Finding a Way Out. He is currently developing a curriculum focused on helping clients move beyond the impact of childhood trauma. Andrew has a passion for decreasing the stigma of mental health and trauma, particularly for men, and currently holds a master's in public and business administration in emergency and disaster management. And he is currently working on his PhD in clinical psychology. He has also been a life coach for 7 years. Let's welcome Andrew Ross to the table.
Hi, Andrew. Yes. All right,
Yes,
glad to have
welcome.
you here, man. All right. So, I guess obviously we got a lot of things to talk about today. Where you want to start, man? Tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now.
Well, right now it is very interesting, and I've been working in the field of human service and mental health for the past 20 years. As of yesterday, I resigned from my job as the regional director for a mental health clinic. Reason for doing that was for many facets. Me seeing services not being delivered the right way to certain populations within Brooklyn, which hurts my heart. Being a new father again to a daughter who is 5 months old, Ava. I'm starting to see if we can definitely start helping the youth today. We don't have to repair them when they get older.
Okay,
That's a good point. That's a good point.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
So, the first thing that jumps out about you is this book, man. That you got
9 Lives.
Which one?
9 Lives.
Oh, right. We're gonna get to the second one, but the first book that Danya just talked about was the 9 Lives Finding a Way Out book. There's so much to jump into, but what was the influence? Like, what influenced you to write this book?
I think Queens, under interracial, as an interracial individual, father African American, mother white Irish, being bullied every day, caused me to go down some roads where I'm not too proud of, but I figure that was what turned me into the man I am today. The book covers everything from my times of addiction, my times of 9 times where I tried to kill myself.
Wow.
The time there was so much sexual, physical, and emotional abuse going on inside the home with me and outside the home, that I didn't believe in God. And I turned to a different spiritual force, which is witchcraft. Okay. And I did witchcraft from the age of 16 to I think 26, 27.
Wow.
Which caused me so much pain.
Wow.
But I did that to scare the bullies away from me. What it wound up doing is causing me to isolate and become even more suicidal. I can honestly say today that I have experienced that whole different spiritual realm where I was seeing things and feeling spirits actually going through my body.
Wow.
Yeah, and come to find out, it was only about 17, 18 years ago I decided to give my life over to the Lord and stuff like that.
Okay.
So can I ask what kind of Was there a particular kind of witchcraft, or is that just witchcraft in general, or was there like a particular religion that?
So now every member of that code is dead.
Wow, really?
Or either locked up doing life or got deported back to their country.
And so, is there a name for that code, or
it was just called 666, 3 6s? Yeah.
Okay.
Now you might see some rap gangs working with that right now. But I always tell people at that particular time during that whole movement, we were actually hurting people, and people were hurting us as well too. Hence the reason why I was sent to prison for 2.5 years.
Now, is that something that continues still today, this particular cult, or did it just start and stop with you?
No, it's still out there.
It's still out there.
It's even drugs that the kids are taking, the marijuana, the synthetic marijuana, the K2.
Wow.
And people say, oh man, when I tell people about my whole witchcraft story in 66, they're like, oh man, I would never do that. But a lot of people are doing it unconsciously.
Unconsciously, right. So you said it's inside the music. Can you speak to that a little bit?
I think hatred towards each other, and I'm going into African Americans. As the young kids, they start to, talk about each other and want to kill each other. And the death of Pop Smoke just happened not too long ago.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart because I know he was a good person, but what happens is that we engage these individuals in this music and this talk and this guns and stuff, and don't steer them down the right way. If you know, and it's very interesting, I don't suggest anybody do this, but in the Satanic Bible, it actually has a prayer where you turn your spirit and your soul over to the devil, and you got to do that on a daily basis, right? And people are doing that today when even in relationships, stepping outside of relationships. When you lay down with somebody, you exchange spirits and energy as well too. I was talking to Cammy before this, and I was telling him that God has gifted me the skill set to be able to pick up certain things with certain individuals, even when they're walking down the street before they even approach me. So yeah, it's.
So Andrew, so this is fascinating that you got into this kind of situation, but I guess I'm wondering, like, like, what was the foundation of all this? Like, what was going on at home? Like, where were your parents in this? Because you said you started around 16. So, where were your parents during this time? Or like, what was going on in your home?
Well, that's a whole different. It's an interesting story. My dad would actually lock us inside of a house. My mother, my sister, my brother, the dog, and 2 rabbits. He didn't let us communicate with nobody. So every time we went to bed, he would board up the house before we went to bed.
This is every night?
Every night, yeah. And before, and only people he let come in the house is people that they used to have orgies with. Okay. So there was a lot of sexual abuse going on inside there. The room was their room was so dark that when you walked in there was red lights, but there was pornographic information all over the place, different types of things. So for me to escape from that and go outside and then get bullied again at school, there was no safe place for me to go, but to reach out to a lower power, I'm not going to say higher power, that would push people away from me. And then I was also being emotionally and physically abused by my dad.
Okay.
So just I guess the question is, like, you had no adults around you, like no relatives or anybody in school that you could talk to?
We were not introduced to our relatives. My dad was that protective of us. We didn't know our aunts, cousins, grandmothers, grandfathers, none of that. We didn't have it. It was just, he just said that was just us. That was it. And still to this day now, I know there's family out there, but there's no desire to build any relationship because it wasn't brought up like that.
Okay. All right.
So as a kid, what was that like for you, experiencing this, I guess, at the age of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? Like,
I can't, honestly, and my mother passed away last year in April, and we have no pictures of her smiling together with us. It's like 1 or 2. So it was rough. It was being teased at school and then coming home. My dad was also very abusive towards my mother as well too, and they also drank a lot. So whenever they drank, they fought physically and verbally as well too. So yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I'm just always curious. So, do you know, as far as your parents, what kind of upbringing they had?
So I learned by being in school for clinical psychology and understanding the whole behavior thing that my mother was in a group home for 10 years, and before that she was also abused. And when she came out, she met my dad at a restaurant, and he was abusive towards her then as well too. But my dad also ran away when he was 13 years old and got into his whole day. Before he died, he expressed some sexual abuse that happened to him. What I have learned is that they loved us the way they knew how to love us, right? And I had a big resentment towards my mother and father. I hated them, but coming to know that now, it was just understanding a little bit more. And my mother died from childhood trauma.
Yeah,
it ate her body up.
Right.
The alcohol, the cigarettes, the high blood pressure, the COPD from the cigarettes. My dad died. He had so much control over my mother that when my dad died, my mother locked herself in a room for 10 years.
Really?
And went blind.
So your father passed first?
Yeah, he died from cardiac arrest, and then my mother died about 11 years later from cardiac arrest too. Both had traumas. The trauma thing is very, very, it's such a correlation between physical outcomes.
Right.
And I'm always fascinated too about how people who have gone through a lot of trauma seem to attract people also into their lives that have also gone through trauma. So it's like the cycle just keeps repeating again and again and again unless it's broken.
Right. So and that's another key point too. I have learned that, I'm not trying to repair the relationships that me and my mother and my father had because they're gone, or even with my older daughter. I think the biggest thing with anybody with trauma needs to learn how to repair the relationship with themselves. And have to first forgive themselves first and start learning, because there was a piece taken from me at the age of 7. There was a piece taken that I didn't know was gone until I started doing some work on myself.
Okay. So what do you forgive yourself for?
For blaming myself for the sexual abuse that happened to me, the physical abuse that happened to me as a young man. It wasn't my fault that my dad threatened to throw me off a roof and stuff like that, and it wasn't my fault that I walked into something I shouldn't have walked into, and they was either having sexual intercourse and with other couples. I blame myself many years for that. The interesting part about that is that whole thing prepared me for what I'm doing today.
Right.
I'm able to ID with certain people, and then they're gravitated to me because there's people out there right now, they're suffering. The trauma just eating them up.
So true.
So what was the obviously you're telling us about a lot of dark things and things that are very traumatic and damaging. What was the turning point for you? Like when did things start to shift for you? If you could guide us through that.
So I think it shifted for me the 9th time that I tried to kill myself.
The 9th time?
9th time.
Yeah, the 9th time I tried to kill myself and it didn't work. So I had got a syringe with some cold water, and somebody said, if you stick it in your vein, on this side, your heart will freeze. Now, obviously, that didn't happen. I'm still here.
Okay.
But it was only to that point I'm saying, listen, God has a plan. There's something here for me that I used to be in here.
Why you're still alive?
Right. So that was the point I started. But also to make it clear that once you do arrive, things get better, but things get real.
Well, explain what you mean by that.
Meaning that the more you continue to work on yourself, the more stuff will start coming out.
Right.
It's probably been buried since you were 3 years old.
Right.
And I always tell people during my speeches and during my workshops, I say, listen, just because I have a family and I do this and I do that, it doesn't mean I don't struggle every single day. And what I mean by struggling, because sometimes Pastor says this, it's easy to obtain than to maintain. And since then, I got born again as a Christian. Started praying a lot, but I see that God has taken me to different places. Like I talked to the wife, and she said, "You want to leave your job? Leave your job. I know God has something for you." And I'm like,
okay.
Yes.
So I believe that I'm being led by the Holy Spirit, but I'm also not naive that there is evil out there that we can't see.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
So, do you talk to a lot of young people, like about like your story, like to just encourage them in terms, because obviously your childhood was very traumatic. So, is that something that you do on a regular basis?
I do. So I work a lot with probation and parole.
Okay.
They have this group, and I keep forgetting the name of it. And I don't know how. It's only through the grace of God that nothing pops off there. But they allow all the Bloods, the Crips, the Yetta, the Latin Kings to come in one room trying to gather some social service resources.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Now I talked to the guy who developed that, and I'm like, it's only through the Holy Spirit, nothing popped off here. But I did have a shootout there last year behind probation.
Really?
Okay, behind probation. Okay.
Yeah, downtown Brooklyn. Yeah, it was interesting. But it's interesting because I'm able to attract the younger generation because they read the book and they hear my story like, wait a minute, I'm gang banging right now as well too, and I feel like killing myself, and I'm only smoking weed so I can release some of the tension I have. This is not me. I want to be great. So I'm able to communicate with them like that and either get them into services or stay tightly connected to them.
Okay, all right. So, I guess just for you, what's the most rewarding part of that? In terms of speaking to young people, what would you say is the most rewarding?
I think when they come up to me, either coming out of prison or coming out of Rikers Island or coming or being in a gang and no longer being in the gang and saying, Mr. Roy, you really help me out now. I have a family. I used to run a Father's Count program in the South Bronx.
Okay.
For Inwood House. And we had fathers coming there that was in Bloods, Crips, and everything, smoking weed, very depressed. And still to this day, 3 or 4 of those guys stay connected to me on Facebook, and they both have established families. They have kids. They're married.
Okay.
They're working. They're not gangbanging no more. But it becomes tricky as well too, because you do have that certain amount of individuals who have suicidal ideations, and they're going to go out banging.
So that's what I'm curious about is so when you're talking to these individuals, do you speak to the spiritual side of what's happening? And because I know when you experience trauma that you're vulnerable to like those evil spirits coming in. So do you address those things with them?
The way I address them is certain words I don't use with them, like spirituality and stuff like that. I kind of take the words from their music. Okay. And then I add scripture to it without adding scripture to it. So I do parables type of thing, and I break it down. So they understand Jesus. Right, yeah. They understand it more because Pastor said, if you understand the language, you can control the conversation.
Right.
So you have to know exactly what they're listening to. You have to know exactly what they're watching on YouTube. They got these hood series films now, Respect Life and all this other stuff, and these are graphic films where people are getting killed selling drugs from the pink houses.
Okay,
really?
All right.
And there's messages inside there that I use inside there where I can talk to them and then get them to reel them in and then start planting that seed. Even if they run away, the seed is still planted.
Right.
It's going to grow someplace, but they're going to remember what I said.
Right.
I think a lot of programs are not taking that route. We talked about it before. Let's give somebody who's actively in the Bloods and Crips and get them an OSHA card.
Okay.
Or get them into security. No, it's not the answer. You have to find out what's going on with them first, build them up, and then give them the training, and then give them the jobs.
Okay. All right. So do you so for a young person right now who might be in a gang or had a similar background to you in terms of the abuse and trauma, I mean, are there specific programs that you refer them to, like that you feel like reputable programs that you feel as though can do some of the work that you talked about just now?
Yeah, one thing I don't agree with is the whole anger management thing. And I'm just saying that because a lot of referrals come from probation for anger management.
All right.
and these individuals are not angry. They need somebody to talk to one-on-one,
Mm.
or somebody that's going to be in a group setting just like them.
Okay.
Because a lot of them, first of all, a lot of them are engaged on the street or smoking bud because they don't trust people.
Mm.
Their family is the street. So when you bring them into a group setting, that group setting has to be so dynamic where it's actually speaking their language and also giving them something.
Okay. All right. So now, okay. So obviously, you have a second book, right? That that I know that you wanted to talk about today. So tell us the title and what's the book about.
So the title of the book is called Undetected Scars. Not all scars are visible. So what I did, I took the 8 dimensions to a balanced life, which is spiritual, mental, physical, family, social, relational, finance, and education. And I broke everything down with research, articles, steps, and questions they can ask themselves. Mm. The best part about this book is I just finished a 12-week curriculum that can be shopped around with different organizations, different schools, even on one-on-one life coaching. So it's been doing pretty well, but it's opened up the eyes of a lot of people.
So is it kind of like a workbook, like something that anybody could just pick up and read, and you could kind of work through some of that pain?
Yeah. So they have each section has a place where they can write. It has questions they can ask themselves, and also has steps. In which they can actually steps where they can actually go through step by step to build that particular area, like spirituality. How much time are you spending with God?
Right.
Do you meditate? Do you believe in God? If no, why? Because if you say why, then somebody's going to dig. Say, listen, when I was younger, I know with me, my belief in God stopped after I got abused. I'm like, ain't no God. I got abused. He would have stopped it right then and there.
Right.
And a lot of people are definitely looking at that, saying, if there was a God, my boy wouldn't have got killed, shot to death. Right? If there was a God, then, we wouldn't be in the shelter system. Or if there was a God, there would. But you have to understand, and I'm going right back to the first book, the pieces to the puzzle to my purpose. So everything that went on in my life has created the man I am today.
Yeah.
With a beautiful wife and a beautiful daughter, and in my PhD program, my third year, right? So it's I could have been going a long time ago.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So it's interesting that that you said when things happen, like for example, like you're abused, people say, well, there couldn't be no God. But they don't look at the flip side of it, that there's also evil that could be contributing to these things that are happening. So, I mean, I just find it interesting that people tend to blame God for these things, but they don't look at the evil that also contributes to what goes on in the world. I don't know if you could talk about that.
I honestly think it's a denial to really look inside self, right? Because we see all these people in East New York on New Lives Avenue, they just shot this kid to death, blasted his head off right there on the corner, 19 years old, right? It probably was gang related, right? But a lot of people are not looking at the whole thing of what they're engaged in too. Oh, it's no guy. It can't be no, it can't be no guy that they did this to my boy. But there's some behaviors going on in the environmental and within the community that people are refusing to look at. And the reason why people are refusing to look at it because it's painful. It's painful. Okay. Like if I don't have my weed, I can't talk to you.
Right.
If I don't have my weed all day and my Henny at night and then my shorty at the end of the day, there's no me. You take that away from them, they become suicidal, they become depressed. So the biggest thing for me leaving my job is to find a way, I think through this curriculum might really be good too, is how can we dig inside, unpack some stuff, help you heal, and change the way you see things.
Yeah.
All right.
And I guess it's easier to just blame God than it is to take a look inward at what's really the problem.
I cursed God for so many years because of the parents I had, because of the abuse that was going on. I was like, ain't no God. Hell with that. No. Even when I was locked, when I went to prison for 2.5 years, I actually... In prison just a place where you become a better criminal. There's no rehabilitation there.
No.
Listen, I'll be honest with you, they don't got no programs. So when you come out, you're thinking of ways to become a better criminal.
Right, so you don't get caught again.
Right, and then you build up resources there with other criminals so you can actually have
Wow.
But they don't see this. But but it's a very interesting. I know for a fact God is real today.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a praying man. I also know there's a dark side of things. We're going up against things that we can't see, and that's a lot of things that a lot of people are not talking about. That listen, we're dealing with spiritual forces in higher places that are taking control of certain things. They're hovering over different communities and stuff like that, and just putting people in this state of mind where they become suicidal.
Wow.
I just heard this morning this police officer, 37 years old, actually took his wife and his 2 sons to Disney World, and when he came back, he shot them all to death and he killed himself.
Really?
This happened a couple of days ago, right?
Really?
People are suffering, and it's not just with the youth. I'm in contact now with doctors and lawyers and people, CEOs of companies and business people who are becoming transparent with it. This ain't no joke. Sometimes I don't feel like being here.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And these are some of the people providing services to the youth.
Right.
So
Yeah. And that's becoming prevalent. That whole suicide thing. It's like, when you talk to people, a lot of people, they express that same thing, like, what's the point of me being here, that type of thing, and it's crazy.
So what do you feel like your purpose is going forward? Like after everything that's happened, like what do you see as your singular purpose, or maybe not singular, but what do you see as your purpose?
Carry the message out there, let people know it's going to be okay. Whether through my workshops, through the other books that I'm working on, during lectures, during working with providers. That's my job to the day I die. The wife is aware of that, and she knows how passionate I'm about that, and also at the same time taking care of myself.
So considering all the things that you've gone through, when you mentioned taking care of yourself, what kind of things do you do to just to help with your own healing?
So, I go to therapy myself once a week. I go to the gym on a consistent basis. I eat right. I make sure the relationship is right at home. I also educate myself on different things. Most importantly, I find, and there's another thing with the whole, I go right back into the job thing. There's a lot of people working out here, going to school and covering up themselves. So when you take that away from them, they got to deal with themselves. So being able to meditate by the water is very important for me as well too.
Okay. All right.
The little cornball stuff I thought was back in the day was corny, but it ain't now. It's like going there and looking at the birds.
It's a lifeline now.
Lifeline right now. So that really helps. And just keeping positive people in my life. Everybody, like Pat said, everybody does not deserve a space in my life because I got to protect myself and I got to protect them. So I got a handful of people right now that I can turn to and talk to. Everybody I can't talk to about what I'm going through.
Okay. I mean, listen, just as recent as yesterday or the day before, I have people in my office that, like with the rent in New York City the way it is, and just the pressure of New York City, people who are ready to give up. And you've been there, like you said, at least 9 times. So what would you say to that person who is ready to give up, who may be listening to this podcast? What would you say to that person?
Don't give up. Seek out to talk to somebody you trust. This too shall pass. As I mentioned before, there was many. Must have been in the shelter system maybe 8 times. Right, homeless and stuff like that, where I had an older person come up to me, an old timer, said, "Listen, young, you're gonna be okay." And listen, these feelings do come of despair and stuff once in a while, but it's up to us as individuals to really look at and see exactly where that's coming from. And really reach out to somebody, especially this podcast right here. I listened to the podcasts before this one with Reggie and everybody, and it inspired me. If they don't want to come to this podcast, find something on YouTube that's a podcast that's inspirational, motivational.
Okay.
I like listening to Dr. Miles Monroe. Okay. Dr. Tony Evans, Dr. A.R. Bernard, of course. These things give me that hope.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's also important to note to when you're feeling like giving up, to find out the why.
What do you mean by that?
Meaning that what is causing you to feel a certain way. So, for example, I had a client that was living in an environment where, and I'm going to be honest, the mother and father was sleeping with him.
His mother and father?
And what happened with that, we was able to sit him down, and they was able to pull him out of, he was able to reach out for help because he was suicidal and everything, but he had nobody to talk to. Right. He read the first book.
Okay.
And said, you know what? Let me talk to this guy. And we talked, and I didn't tell him that he had to do something. I gave him some suggestions and stuff like that because he also had a case manager at the program. And he wound up moving out on his own. Okay. Into a youth program, right? And now he has the healing process started. The mother and father is pissed off, of course, but that shouldn't happen to no type of youth.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And it also takes the willpower of the individual.
Right.
And also takes the people of the community. It also takes the providers of the community as well, too, because sometimes the providers are actually adding to the dysfunction of the individual.
And what do you mean by that?
So for example, I know there's some good providers, especially here in Flatbush. And I'm not just saying that. I'm going to be honest with you because a lot of people, I tell a lot of people where it's at. I had the opportunity to visit a couple of clinics in East New York, right off of Pickens Avenue, and it broke my heart because the clinics look like a body shop.
Okay.
When I mean a body shop, there was a whole bunch of African Americans, a whole bunch of Latinos there, wheelchairs, one leg and no arm and stuff like that. And I said, listen, I need to talk to somebody here because I want to refer my clients to some of your doctors in some places.
Right.
They put me in this big office that, ran by Indians and stuff like that, from Indian descent. And I was telling them, I said, listen, I have people coming out of the shelter system, out the prison system, out of these programs that need a provider. They said, we whispered towards each other. They said, we'll call you.
Okay.
Wow.
And it hurt my heart because I seen these people in there almost looking like cattle.
Wow.
And the Medicaid and the Medicare and the managed care. Let's milk your card. Let's give you a diagnosis so we can bill.
Right.
So that's what I'm talking about. They add to the dysfunction. So they see a kid coming through that might be, he have a whole bag of candy, eating a big blue lollipop, drinking soda.
Right.
And they said, he's so active, let's give him ADHD.
Right.
Give him medication that's highly connected to heroin.
Right, yeah.
Now the parents are taking it now too, believe it or not. The Ritalin.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
To keep up with the kid.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay, that's what you mean.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that.
Okay.
So in light of that, are you doing anything maybe to equip other people to I guess support your vision, so that, because you're one person and there's no way you can help everybody, know, so you're doing a lot of things, a lot of great things, and it all sounds really good, but do you have like a team of people that work with you to kind of help reach?
Not yet. So I have a Malcolm X and a Martin Luther King spirit. Right? Okay. And I have to learn how to balance that out, right? And I can't go into every place trying to start a revolution. So what I did do is I contacted 8 organizations that's willing to work with me at an upper level, a top level, a CEO level, so we can have a decent discussion about what the needs are. So I got to develop a report, bring in my little curriculum, and then we can talk. But they're gonna take it nice and slow with that because remember, it's all about the numbers.
Right.
If there's no clients, there's no job.
Right.
For some of these programs, not all programs. So the first thing for me to do, I think it's important, is for me to go into a fast and a detox next week.
Okay.
We're planning, me and the wife, we're planning that out right now so I can really get a clear focus what's going on because opportunities are coming my way to really teach and also do lectures as well.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
Last question for me, Andrew. Do you feel like people are open to hearing your, like your story and your message? Because sometimes people can really be like shut down and closed off, and do you feel like people are open to hearing it?
Some. And it's interesting because me and the wife, we joke about it is every time I come home, she said, "What place did they ban you from today?" And I'm like, "Stop it with that, all right?" Because there's been a couple places where I went in there and I started talking about the 8 dimensions to a balanced life, how to build better value for yourself. Some programs in some places it's just not for it because the leaders can't understand the value to it. And it's just about, like I said before, and I'm gonna keep saying this, it's about job training, resume writing, and trainings.
That's all they care about.
Yeah. They don't want to hear nothing about mental health. Mental health, we don't want to open up nothing because if you open up something with the client, you might open up something with the staff.
Oh wow. Okay.
And that's a whole
another can of worms.
There's another story that got me banned from someplace because staff did call me one morning, having suicidal ideations, and it was just it wasn't a client, it wasn't she didn't work for my organization. It just said I said, "Listen, I can't give you." I just said, "Call 911, do what you got to do," and that was it. But she went back to the program and told the programs and stuff that I didn't help her all the way and stuff, and it was interesting. But it opened up other things within the program, some dysfunction that they didn't want to touch.
Okay.
Wow.
All right. Let me also say another thing: spirituality.
Right.
These programs. It's interesting. And some of these programs were developed from priests from back in the day, 1902.
Right.
Right. And they don't want you to talk about spirituality. And I'm saying this on the first podcast that I ever talked about this, is that I believe God is going to use me to bring spirituality back into these programs in these schools.
All right.
Good.
It's necessary.
Yeah.
It's necessary.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And I think too, when people have an understanding of that, it helps put everything in perspective. But if you just wilding out and you don't even know why you're wilding out, it's hard to, I guess it's just hard to figure out. People need to know why they're doing what they're doing.
Or maybe they know why they don't want to touch it.
Well, I mean, listen. I find a lot of times people in my office, like, they really don't know why they're doing things. Like, it's because it's been such a part of their life for so long.
Yeah.
They just accept it as that's who they are.
Yeah.
And when you with the trail of breadcrumbs, so to speak, when you are able to connect the dots for them and help them to understand how their environment and how their upbringing and other issues might have contributed to their behavior, then it's kind of like a light goes on. They go, wait a minute, so I don't have to act like this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
It's I just find that knowledge is so important in terms of, especially our people, because people have so many superstitions and so many things your mom told you, and back home in this island they do this and stuff like that. That it's like people just accept that as the truth rather than And this is part of why we do the podcast, is that we want to get information out to people to end the stigma of mental health, getting mental health help. And just letting people know that there is hope. I mean, you're the poster child for, for mental health working. So, I mean, listen, man, we thank you for coming, man. Do you want to say any last things before we wrap up?
I think it's also important as well, too, is that there's a lot of people walking around here with a particular condition. Right? A condition from, and I'm going to go because I'm really privy on this, and I like talking about this, is a condition. Pastor talked about a couple of weeks ago about the psychological effects of slavery, economically, environment, social. But what I have learned that have broke my heart is the fact that people, even know their condition a certain way, some people will not take their advice because they're so conditioned.
Right.
On a last note, everybody listening to this podcast, people out there struggling, people out there depressed, people out there going through something, everybody was born to be great.
That's true.
And we were all born, and I'm going to say this right now, we were all born to be rich.
Financially.
And spiritually. Really? We were not designed to be poor.
All right. That's a deep conversation.
Podcast.
Part two. We got to bring you back for that one.
Part two.
But I think it's important because every single body has a skill and a talent.
True.
We have an assignment here.
That is true.
Yeah.
To feed a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, to provide a solution for a problem.
problem.
That is true. I would agree.
And some of us don't even know that we have that.
People listen to this podcast will continue to listen to this podcast, get some hope, and you don't have to end it. And, this too shall pass. And if you need somebody to talk to, just reach out to somebody who you can trust.
Yes.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you, Andrew, for
that was
coming.
a lot, man.
Yeah.
Thank you for dropping by, man. Listen,
Amazing.
we obviously let's just get the name of the books once again.
All right. The first book is called Undetected Scars. Not All Scars Are Visible.
Okay.
And then the first one is 9 Lives Finding a Way Out.
Yes.
All right.
Both books can be found on www.shapedbygreatness. That's SHAPED by greatness.com, where you can find the books. You can find where I'm speaking at next. You can find my coaching services as well too.
Great.
Amazing.
All right. Thank you for the information.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
It was an honor to have you.
All right.